Welcome to You Know What, the podcast for you that dispels the myths and BS in the fitness industry whilst leveling up your A game in everyday life. We are your hosts, Nick Finch and Dan King. You know what? Welcome to another podcast. Dan, Laura, what's up? It's recording.
Hello.
It's recording, man.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've got to put this in the podcast now. Anyway, right, we are recording, don't worry. We have, obviously, Dan, as usual, myself, and we have Laura. We have our second guest, I think.
Yeah.
Third guest?
Third guest.
I don't even know.
Third guest.
We have our guest,
but
Laura.
First female guest on the podcast, might add.
On the new set.
On the new set. Yeah, on the new set. On the old set, not so much.
Right, with that dribble out of the way, Laura, welcome.
3's my favourite number as well, so...
Hey, look at that. I like it. So, Laura, have you got an interesting fact for us today?
I do.
Here's with it.
Australia is bigger than the moon.
I had this one.
And I love the moon.
You searched the same thing I did.
Oh, when did you say that?
I did this in the last podcast.
When? Now?
Last
yeah.
week? Well.
We must have Googled the same thing.
You probably just Googled, like, literally just went, interesting fact, and you're like, yes, that one, that's great. But it is actually quite fascinating. We spoke about this previously. And it's mad, actually, when you think about it, that something in outer space is, well, the same size as Australia, firstly.
Yeah, and the moon.
Yeah. But did you know that 75% of Australia is inhabitable?
Really?
Fun fact.
I know, actually, that is true. I mean,
just due to its climate and how it's actually designed. Fun fact.
mad.
There you go. Uno reverse,
the
throw one back.
Dangerous thing in Australia, though, isn't even spiders. It's kangaroos.
Really?
Yeah, those things
They
will
look
box you.
savage.
Yeah. They're actually known to drown their victims and then eat them.
Hold on. How
mad.
the hell does a kangaroo drown someone?
Have you seen a jacked up kangaroo? Like, they full on do the
Yeah.
bodybuilding pose. Yeah. Have you seen
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, it looks like me when I'm taking my top off. That's how I picture myself. A wham kangaroo. That's my mantra every day. Just a wham kangaroo.
By the way, Laura, if you didn't know, that's the name of the podcast today. It's kangaroos. Are they really that savage? Are they more deadly than
Can you get a
spiders?
picture of like a kangaroo and then my face being like, no? Oh, fair enough. Anyway, I digress, talking about kangaroos. Actually, if you couldn't tell already, Laura and everyone who's watching, we obviously love going on a few little tangents, but that's the whole nature of the podcast at the end of the day.
It is.
It's for everyone to enjoy. Now, Laura, we want to have a little insight into kind of yourself, and I'm going to get a little bit serious here. I'm going to go like Chris Tarrant on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So, Laura, I do. That needs to be in the edit.
Yeah.
So, for you, we want to learn something about yourself. Obviously, I've spoken to you once over messaging. You and Nick technically are on the same course together, so you guys have had interactions and spoken to each other. But I want to learn a little bit about you, and I'm not going to be that generic interviewer who's like, so Laura, who is Laura? I'm not going to play that game. What I want to know, Laura, is what would you say, what animal best represents you?
Oh, that's a good question. And an elephant is coming to mind. I don't really know why, but we're going to roll with it. It's the first animal that comes to my mind.
I like it. You know what? I thought I'd just go on a different approach there, and it's actually come out very well. I like it.
I wouldn't expect an elephant, to be fair. I thought maybe...
Well,
I
elephants
don't know.
are wise, and they have a very good memory, and I'm definitely both of those things.
Hey,
It's
I
definitely
like
two things I wish I was.
What are you then?
I'm a wolf, mate.
A wolf?
I'm a wolf. I'm a social animal. I hunt in packs. That's pretty much as far as that goes.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough.
I would say uber intelligent, but sometimes I question my own intelligence. So, you know. But yeah, Laura, anyway, that was just kind of me just kind of seeing where we've got kind of more of a tangent side of things. But as I say, so speak to us about kind of the stuff that you do and the areas that you specialize in. Obviously, you're a women's health and fitness coach, but what is it as a whole picture that you do?
So I have like a really holistic approach with how I work with all of my clients. We look at them from like a physical perspective, obviously, mental perspective, emotional, and also spiritual, because I really believe that you need to look at all of those parts of yourself in order to like truly thrive. And especially as I mainly work with like business owners, women in quite corporate jobs, high achieving women, we need to look at all of those areas to thrive. So I like to think we're quite different from a lot of like the other coaches and stuff out there, because we actually encompass like a whole 360 view of the person. So that's it really, like in a nutshell. And obviously you guys know, like I've got a little bit of a witchy spiritual side. So I do like to bring some of that into the coaching as well.
Because Laura, I mean, obviously what you said is awesome to hear. I also remember seeing on your story, you had this like little witch mat with like candles and stuff. So I can only imagine like what goes down. Like,
oh, we cast spells and all sorts. No, I'm joking.
God. Do you know what? Some of my exes cast spells on me, so gotta be careful. Anyway, right. Digress. Female entrepreneurship, though. I think obviously, like, you know, we actually help, I would say, similar people, Laura, in some ways. But obviously, probably got like a different kind of like pathway to get there, if that makes sense. But obviously, you're a female entrepreneur yourself. I'm not sure if the people that you help, the clients you help, are largely female entrepreneurs or male entrepreneurs, but we obviously want to dive into it today. We want to dive into female entrepreneurship and some of the things around it. So, Dan, I know you've got like a list of questions that you've written up. Dan's been researching you, Laura.
I have. Not weird stalking research. This isn't like a Facebook stalk back in day. This is like this is a business research. Learn more about you. So kind of I want to know a little bit. Don't worry, I haven't like wrote down some of your post topics. I haven't done that.
You can't even read it.
No, and you can't read my writing. It looks like hieroglyphics 90% of the time. I can't even read it without squinting sometimes. So there's one big area that I kind of wanted to talk about, and obviously motivation is such a generic topic, and we know a lot of the time it comes down to discipline. But I don't want to sit here as three coaches being like, you must be disciplined with whatever you're doing, because people that are going to be watching this are going to be thinking, I don't feel motivated. Okay, it's going to be that first little boundary line that people are going to be working with. So for you, Laura, for you to get to the position that you're in now, I kind of want to like regress quite a long way. And there was something on your story you put up today talking about a previous job life. Now, you used to be an international woman of work, didn't you? I was going to say an international woman of mystery, but, you know, we can go down that road if you want. But you're an international woman of work. How did you firstly go from where you were then to kind of a position where you were motivated to come in every single day and put that shift in when you were working for another company at the time?
That's a really good question. And whenever I'm asked questions to like sort of like go back into like the beginning, it's always a little bit of a long-winded answer, so I'll give you the shorter version, and then if you want me to go into detail in any segments, then let me know and we can. But I guess for me, like I moved out at 18 years old, so like I dropped out of college twice. I had all the best intentions. I was studying like sociology, psychology, government politics and law. So like they were like massive interests to me, but moving out, I just needed money. So I went and got a job in like a service-based company, and I just slowly started working my way up in that position, well, in that company. And then I got into recruitment and business-to-business sales, business-to-consumer sales. And at about 21, I broke up with my boyfriend because we were living together at the time, and I couldn't afford to stay living where I was. It was just too expensive. So I moved about 40 minutes away from where I was, and I had literally like no friends. I didn't know my way around. I had nothing to do. So a family friend was actually like, Laura, why don't you just come along to, do you know like, those outdoor boot camps?
Yep.
There was an offer on Groupon, like you get 5 sessions for like £5 or something. So I was like, oh, what's a fiver? I'll go along. And I actually ended up really loving the outdoor boot camp sessions. So it just spiraled from there, really. I started socializing, meeting new people, gave me a reason to like get out of the house. Then I actually started to like feel really fucking good.
Yep.
And also start to see the changes in my physique. Like I started to get some abs, and I was like, this is really exciting. I want to continue doing this and see where else I can go with it. So that's really how I first started getting into it, as I just was really, really lonely, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fair play. I mean, I think entrepreneurship is lonely. I know you probably, when you first went into online entrepreneurship and you're no longer around people, you realise how like lonely it actually is. So what's that noise?
Sorry, I can't actually hear you.
Oh. Is that our laptop? Or?
I don't know. I don't think it's our laptop, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah, there seems to be a little bit of static coming through. Can you hear me?
I can hear a lot of static.
Yeah, so we can hear. We don't know if it's Riverside going on at the minute.
Don't know. Mine's never. Oh, that's better now.
Yeah.
So if I turn this down a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine. There you go.
Okay, I think it might be reverb.
You need a little. Do you know the little icons that you put on TV, like technical issues, and then you have to the little. You need that on the video. I can help you edit it. That's my skill.
This is why we need like a tech guy to like solve problems.
James, press the button, James. Stop the podcast. We do need a tech guy. There's a little stool there that we can have a little tech gremlin. It's great.
Oh,
There's a little stool.
That's like a barber stool.
You can get Sharky to sit on that.
Question is, can we hear you, Laura?
Oh no! Now your video's gone.
Why is our video gone? Well, this is a calamity.
Has it?
I don't know. I mean, we can still see you.
For those listening to podcasts, it's the first time we've done it online.
Yeah.
So, teething issues.
Yeah.
It says recording continues smoothly, but we will return when your internet improves. I guess we'll just have to roll with it.
Okay, let me just double check. Well, we're connected to Wi-Fi still, which is good.
To be honest, you can just have fun playing around with the
But
edit.
you can hear us, Laura, yeah?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That'll do for now. Hopefully it comes through nice. I actually forgot what we were talking about. I've completely...
We were talking entrepreneurship and loneliness. So you obviously spoke
Yeah.
a little bit on the topic of kind of feeling lonely as an entrepreneur to start with, and that kind of like boot camp bringing you together with groups of people. Now, we've spoken on community a little bit and kind of building our community that we've got within our business. But for you, obviously, with the females you work with, what kind of... Do you find that there's more of a sense of community between the women you work with than, say, in the past, maybe when you've done some work with blokes? I'm just interested either way of this one, because I feel like sometimes that women can really support each other, whereas a lot of the time us blokes, we don't like to support each other. We kind of put either blame on ourselves or blame on the other people as to why we're not being successful. So I'm just curious, within the community of women that you train currently, do you find that there is more of a community there between women than there are between men?
So I've never worked with men before.
Oh,
but
interesting.
I know that definitely there is a community amongst women. And there's like a lot of research that shows like women enjoy being in communities a lot more, like having that support system. We have like double the size of our part of our brain that communicates and likes to talk. So we say double the amount of words a day than men do. So I think that's probably a contributing factor to that community aspect. And also as women, which is quite nurturing, like that's in our natural instincts.
Yeah.
So I definitely find that the community side of the coaching that I do is probably like one of the most favorite parts that all of my clients, one of the favorite parts that my clients say they enjoy the most is actually being with other women who just get where they're at. And if like they're having a shit day, they know they can put a message into the group. Someone's either going to be like hyping them up or, you know, going, yeah, me too. Like today sucks.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite aspects as well. But I think definitely community is probably easier for women than men.
Yeah, I agree. Like obviously, there's a lot of people nowadays that say men and women are the same, but they're not. Obviously, there's differences between us. We are largely the same, but there are like, you know, women, from my experience and from what I've seen, tend to be more nurturing. And it's very, you can easily say to a woman like how you feel and they'll actually listen. You say it to you and they'll be like, no, not you directly, but say it to a guy and the guy will be like, oh, cool. Right, what are we doing today? Do you know what I mean?
I do like to say I have a little bit of kind of, I think that's something that I grew up with. Now
You're different. You're different.
I'm
Dan.
different.
You've got a female brain, my man.
I'll take it. No, I do, yeah. But to be honest, I think that depends whether, you know, this is an interesting point though. Do you feel like that people, if you connect with your mum or your dad, like on different levels? Now, I'd say I'm close to my parents either way. I spent a lot of time with my mum, like trying to help my mum with bits and pieces as well. But do you find as well the influence of a parent sometimes? Say if you spend more time with your dad over your mum, you build these sides up differently. We always talk environment impacting a person's personality. Do you think that's something to be true?
Oh, 100%. Like if I look at all the work that I've done in therapy, everything stems from childhood. So 100%, those like early years are the most impactful years on us. And I was actually watching something the other night. I can't remember what it was now, but just talking about like how those early years actually create your personality.
Yeah.
Was there any kind of key bit in your early years? Now, this is delving a little bit deep. So obviously you can kind of fluff over it, or you can go into depth about it. But do you find that anything in your early years that was really a sticking point for you that kind of transversed that mindset that you had from a young age?
if I'm being completely honest, I don't actually have much memory from childhood. My memory really starts probably like from secondary school. And even like in secondary school, the memories that I do have are just of me like being bullied for how skinny I was, for not being attractive enough. Like I had acne growing up and I was just bullied so much for the acne that I had. Like I was called moon face, crater face. People would ask me if I was anorexic, did I even eat food? So that definitely had a massive impact on me. And I also started binge drinking quite young. So like at like 13, 14 years old. And I know that's
young.
I'm going to use the words like normal because a lot of us did start binge drinking, you know, when we were younger. But for me, it was something that definitely just continued at a really unhealthy rate, and probably was like the doorway to a lot of like the unhealthy and toxic relationships that I had as I grew up and become an adult.
That's really interesting, actually. Like, I mean, I personally went through that phase a little bit later. Like, I kind of started around 16, but I think something we can all relate on. We spoke this about kind of like when we started our business, there were two things that me and Nick stand really united on. Is that kind of bullying kind of pushed us to where we are now. Like, there are a lot of stories do stem from that kind of bullying front and kind of, you know, playing on the insecurities of people. Certainly for me and Nick.
I mean, I know you. I mean, we actually all probably were quite skinny when we were kids, right?
Well, yeah.
Some guy on social media the other day said to me, "Oh, well, aren't we all skinny as kids?" No, no, there was kids that were bigger. Trust me. But yeah, no, I had the same problem. I had acne. I was skinny. I was always picked last. I actually was the shortest person in my year, and then I come back from summer, I'm the tallest person, and suddenly it's like such a mind fuck because you're like, I'm used to being the shortest, now I'm the tallest. What the fuck do I do now? I'm like, what? And yeah, it changes you. It changes when you look back. Sorry?
Did people treat you differently when you come back taller?
Yeah, they just look at you and you're skinnier and more of a beanpole, and you're like, beanpole. It's like the bullying changes; it doesn't go away, and it definitely changes you. I actually think that bullying can actually help you later on in life if you're able to deal with the trauma that comes with it. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
I think there's two ways you can look at it, really, isn't there? For any kind of bullying circumstances, bullying can create you or it can break you, and that's the very important thing I learned from a young age. That the kind of the words and feelings and kind of ways that people target you, you can either look at them in a way that one person, they're not feeling secure in themselves to actually speak about their own issues. They're just deflecting it onto you. Or you can look at it in a way that, Christ alive, this is really hurting me, and really take it to heart. Because as I say, a lot of the times that people project this onto you, it's all from an insecurity based within themselves. And actually, to be fair, that's interesting because that does lead us onto a little topic that I wanted to go into, which is kind of insecurities now with being an entrepreneur, with working within your own business. Now, Laura, still to this day, obviously, we all have insecurities, we all have self-doubt. We're going to an escape room later, and I'm probably going to shit myself when we're there.
You're going to come with us, Laura.
Yeah.
I know, I'm so gutted.
We needed that female part of the brain to help us with the parts that we can't comprehend.
Oh, you've already said that. That's me today. I've got you, babes. Don't worry, I've got you. But yeah, I was just kind of going into insecurities and kind of self-doubt. Now, a lot of people, when they start their own businesses, do have, you know, self-doubt and insecurities. Are there any insecurities to this day that you're still personally working on, and how are you working on them now to continue to develop yourself?
That's deep.
Oh God, 100%. Like, and it's funny because I've got a friend who's a really successful entrepreneur as well. And he posted something about how he's been in business 15 years and he still has the imposter syndrome, the self-doubt. And I thought, fuck, does it never end? Does it never go away? So I think we'll all always have insecurities of some kind, but it's learning how to actually manage them and navigate them, which is the important thing and the skill. So like, yeah, I 100% have the fear that my business is suddenly going to crumble. I'm going to lose all of my clients, never get another client again. And then I'm not going to be able to feed Dylan, my dog, and we're going to be homeless. Like, that's a genuine fear that crosses my mind often.
Yeah. Do you ever get any like clients that have like obviously we know clients have insecurities too, but do you ever get any clients where they have like insecurities that you actually help them with, like based on your own experience?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work that we do is like really deep. So most of my clients have either got some kind of background with an eating disorder or like body dysmorphia. So we do a lot of work on that. And the work we actually do is raising like the awareness of these things and your own sort of self-awareness day to day. And I think everything always does stem back to that awareness, because once you're firstly aware of that thought, you're then able to change it, to swap it for a better feeling thought, and you'll also get a much better understanding of like where you're at the moment, what you're projecting. Are your insecurities even true? Are they facts? Are they just something that your inner critic has made up and you've just gone on this downward spiral? So yeah, 100%, we definitely work on insecurities, but everything comes back from like that self-awareness point of view. And this is where a lot of like the mindfulness techniques and like the holistic things that we do come into play. But yeah, everything just stems back from that awareness.
I love that. Like, when you mentioned about obviously like you need to be aware of what's coming in first, like you don't get that without having the mindfulness. And like obviously we're going to touch on like law of attraction stuff soon. We know you've got like that spiritual side that we want to dive into. But yeah, I always had to say the same thing with my clients. It's like most of their problems come from the fact they're not actually aware. They're not allowing themselves to be aware, and they're actually just caught up in this mental loop. And it's just going around and around. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Actually, I was speaking to a client prior to this podcast, and I was just speaking to her about kind of like her feeling really stressed out and overwhelmed with a lot going on. Obviously, I'm not going to go into the details with it, but I said to her, you need to imagine your life like layering a cake. And you need to imagine you need to get the foundations of your sponge cake down first before you start putting some icing on it and thinking of other layers and then thinking how you're going to decorate it. Just take one thing at a time. So today we were talking about these kind of like all these stresses that she's got. And as soon as I turned around, it was like, the question I asked was like, what is the first thing that stresses you out? And it wasn't just one thing. It was, she went, this, and then she went this, and this. So she told me the first thing, but then still in her mind, it was this overwhelming tangle of everything. So I do find that without looking at the foundations and the basis of a lot of things, I find that even with clients and with us, you don't actually start to build that full cake up how you want it to, because you've got such an unstable foundation to work from in the first place. So for you, Laura, as well, you spoke about kind of holistic techniques that you work with clients. What is one holistic technique that you'd say right now is probably one of the better techniques that you use to kind of build those foundations up of your clients?
Oh, meditation and journaling, if I can say two. Without a doubt, those two things.
So with the journaling side of things as well, what kind of emphasis do you put on the journal? Like what areas do you specifically want to target? Do you talk about gratitude? Is that a big area you work with? Or do you just more talk about a scheduling side of things?
So it completely depends on the client and sort of like where they're at the moment. But I think definitely starting with either like a brain dump of what's going on in their mind, like what they're thinking, and putting that down onto paper can actually help you think a lot clearer, because you're getting all of that like noise out of your mind written down onto paper. You can visualize it, you can see it, and often when you read it back you get a lot of clarity yourself. So I find brain dumps are super helpful. Again, you mentioned gratitude lists. Absolutely. We actually had a training last night with our psychologist who was speaking about the neural pathways that exercise can actually create in the brain, and gratitude does exactly the same thing. So often I'll see clients that are in quite like a negative mindset, and they come to me and they can't really tell me anything that they feel grateful for. They feel like there's nothing good going on. So we focus on practicing gratitude. And when you do start focusing on, you know, it can be like the small details, like my bed was really comfy. I really enjoyed my coffee this morning. It doesn't need to be this massive dramatic thing that you're grateful for. But when you start to focus on those smaller details, you're creating new neural pathways in your brain to start always looking for the good and the positive. So I love gratitude lists. They're definitely one of my most favorite ways to journal. And also, I like to get my clients to take note of those negative thoughts that they're having about themselves. So it might be, oh, I'm fat, I look disgusting, or I can't do this. And then reflect back on those points that they've written down and actually write something that they feel that would feel better to believe and is actually closer to the truth than that negative thought that they've written down to begin with.
I love it.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, man, you just nailed it in such a way like that would fix most people's problems if they just did that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what's your experience with gratitude? Like, you've done journaling and stuff, right?
So yeah, I've been journaling for the last year now. So for me, my journaling's not too extreme. It's more just taking points. Like again, you say it's specific to the client. So for example, if I was your client, I'd probably turn around and be like, the things I used to struggle with was scheduling and overwhelm. And as I say, I never built that cake up very efficiently. Yeah. I just threw stuff in there and hope that I get stuff done. So what I now do is I literally the day before, and it's actually something I learned from Kevin Hart. So Kevin Hart spoke about how he does his journaling, and he says there's 3 factors to my journaling. I speak about what's my most important task of the day, when am I going to do those tasks, and then what am I grateful for at the end of the day, specifically to that day, because then you can kind of reflect on what you're doing. And he said, if you're doing that as a minimum, at least you're being mindful about the things that you're doing, the tasks that you're getting done, and how you feel about those tasks. Yeah. Again, for me, I literally just write down, for example, I write down my PT sessions for the day, I write down when I'm going to train, and I write down 2 tasks. I never write any more than 2 tasks, because us as business owners, we tend to give ourselves quite widespread tasks that sometimes we don't quite figure out how long it's going to take. So like for me, I know how long it takes to edit a clip now. So I'll say I can edit 2 clips in 2 hours. And then what I'll end up doing after that is I'll say, what am I grateful for? And if I've had a hard working day, like yesterday, I worked to 7:30. So I turn around and say, I'm grateful for being hardworking. And the same thing, like talking about those areas, that's kind of my gratefulness is starting to grow. And this actually bring us on to law of attraction now, because for me, I've felt so much more profitable in my life this year in terms of developing understanding of areas I can work on and then building on those areas to grow success. So for you with law of attraction and manifestation, with the gratefulness and the, law of attraction in general, what first brought you into law of attraction? Like what made you think this is an area I really want to delve deep into?
I don't think it was like a conscious decision. I don't think it was something like one day I thought, yeah, I want to do this. It was just like a natural evolution on sort of like, I guess, my healing journey and through a lot of the work that I was doing in therapy. Because I was becoming really aware again of the thoughts that I was having, the behaviors, my own patterns that I had. And then more aware of what I actually wanted and what I didn't want that was currently in my life. So there wasn't like a turning point where I started to realize these things, but I definitely immersed myself in like lots of like spiritual gurus, like, Esther Hicks, Eckhart Tolle, Gabby Maté. And then I just started immersing myself in like sound baths, meditation groups. And then the more I went to these things, the more I started to realize, I can actually feel really great if I want to. Yeah. And then I started to realize that, I'm actually in control of how I want to live. And if I want to continue feeling shit about myself, then I just have to continue all of the shitty behaviors that I have and the shitty thoughts. Whereas if I actually want to live a life that I'm enjoying, like right now, not in a year's time, not when I reach a certain goal, then I'm also in control of that, and I can choose every moment throughout the day to live in alignment with that. So I think like the whole law of attraction is actually just getting you into the mind, like the abundance mindset, where you already have those things right now. Like you're not waiting for something to happen for you to then be happy. But what that does is it opens up all of these different opportunities to you, because you've programmed your brain to look for the positive, to feel gratitude in the small moments. And then those moments just continue building and building and building. And I know like it's something that sounds so wishy-washy, but I really don't think it is wishy-washy. Like it makes a lot of sense. If you're going to have good feeling thoughts, you're going to have a good feeling life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think we all have experienced law of attraction. I know we've talked about it before, so I know we've all delved into it. Everyone's got a book that they first read that brought it to attention. I'm just interested to know what your book was, the first book that actually made you like open up to it. Because you must have read books about it.
Yeah, so I actually haven't read much on the law of attraction up until recently. I've got a book at the moment called The Vortex by Esther Hicks,
Oh, that's
which is
deep.
all about, pardon?
That's deep. No, I've seen her on YouTube.
Oh,
She is very passionate. She's a very passionate
oh,
individual. Yeah.
yeah, she's awesome. So I've listened to her for years, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me to begin with, but I pursued, and I like continued to listen, and the more I listened, I'm like, oh, the more this makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've got her book, The Vortex, and there's also another book that I read called Open to Channeling, which is probably a little bit more of an out there book, but
Yeah.
it's all about learning to channel to like your own intuition, like your higher self.
I think, do you
So
know what? I
that,
think that, sorry, what were you saying?
oh no, I was gonna say that was like a game changer, that book for me.
Yeah. I mean, the Esther, I can't say her name. I think it's Esther Hicks.
Yeah,
That's the one.
Esther. Yeah,
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 she's, do you know who I'm on about? She's very passionate individual. She's like the female version of Alan Watts. I don't know if you know Alan Watts.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
like Alan Watts is like a poet, like he's a poet. I like first and foremost. So when he speaks, it's like it rings in your. It's like music to your ears, man. It's like keep talking. It's like a form of escapism, really, to listen to him. But anyway, The Secret was the first book, obviously, that came to mind because I think a lot of people read The Secret or watched The Secret back in the past. And it is wishy-washy if you come at it from a certain angle, but there is actually a guy that's actually introduced a whole different side of the law of attraction from a science point of view, which can actually help people that are a little bit less wishy-washy, if that makes sense. So have you heard of the supernatural guy? What's his name? Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, of course I have. I love Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Heard of him?
I've heard of him. I don't know
yeah.
much about him.
So he talks about law of attraction, but from a purely scientific point of view, and has
Yeah.
actually proven parts of it and how it works. So that, for those that like find like spiritual stuff wishy-washy, that's your introduction. That gets you in. Like honestly,
I was going
He
to.
done
I
a
find it
great.
fascinating. No, go ahead, Laura. Go
He
ahead.
done a, oh no, he done a great series on Gaia. I don't know if you've heard of
Yeah.
Gaia. It's basically like a spiritual Netflix,
yeah,
called Rewired, which is all about meditation, programming your mind, programming the thoughts that you have, and the science behind it all as well, which I love because all of this like pseudoscience stuff is like no longer pseudoscience. The evidence is actually there, and the research is, up and coming to back all of this stuff. So if someone doesn't like necessarily reading books, he's got an amazing series, Rewired, which changed everything for me again.
yeah. And what I love about him the most is like he actually talks about heart coherence, so heart-brain coherence. So by channeling and open up your heart chakra and allowing your energy to connect with your thinking, sounds a bit wishy-washy that, you can actually raise energy in a room, and it's been proven. They've actually tested it. So
Really?
they've had like 30 to 60 people. Sorry?
No, I was going to say they done what did I watch the other night? I watched something with Dr. Stephen Greer actually, where there was a global heart coherence
Yeah.
test, and it showed that when major events happened in the world, the coherence around the globe matched, which just backed up this like coherence thing again with you can and then there was a study where they put 2,000 experienced meditators into a city, and then they done this like coherence test, and the energy was literally raised in that city where they put those 2,000 meditators in, which is
That's
amazing.
crazy. I wonder what the
Yeah.
heart rate coherence is with the stop oil protesters on the road, stopping people from driving to work. Just pure chaos.
Yeah. A different world, and you know what, you were speaking about books and everything there, and you know what, it's fascinating you spoke about The Secret, because I finished reading that back in February, but before that, kind of the introductory book for me, I don't know if you've read it, Laura, but is Good Vibes, Good Life by Vex King.
Oh, I haven't actually, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
fantastic book that talks, again, you're talking about that coherence side of it, and it talks about every individual person. We're continuously made up of particles, and we cause our own particles to vibrate at different levels, as you say, which produce this energy that then vibrates throughout us and vibrates onto other people. So that sounds really weird. So
Actually doesn't, to be fair.
does it not? Does it sound
It
normal?
sounds pretty normal, yeah.
Oh, good, cool. So in terms of like vibrations through people and kind of like resonating that, in a way, I kind of wanted to say, in a way, you're very well followed on social media, and I kind of want to delve into that side. You've got a good following on social media. You've built it up so well. So obviously, we've spoken a very positive side of law of attraction and what it can bring. Now, rising to fame and power has its plus points and its negative points. And as a female boss yourself, you're obviously now in charge of a team. You're in charge of most of the things that are going on throughout your company. But I'm just wondering, what kind of comments have you had thrown your way that you've really had to work on to kind of continue to push yourself forward and kind of battle through barriers? So I'm kind of talking almost the haters. Have you ever had like a really kind of interesting comment that's come your way that's made you think a little bit about what you're doing?
I think I've actually been quite fortunate to not have had really much hate or abuse online. And I know that might be quite rare because a lot of people often do. But what I have come across is actually people who haven't necessarily accepted my own personal growth over the years. How can I word this? And then, I guess, sharing contradictory information off the back of my own posts or my own stories is what I've noticed. So I've not had anything direct, but I've noticed a little bit of a theme. If I talk about something in particular, then I may see some other people say the opposite of what I've said in a bid to try to make me look stupid or like I don't know what I'm talking about.
I know what she's saying, because I think I've seen this on my own social media. I don't know if you have, but like when you say something and then a day later someone said something contradictory to it and it just so happens to come out after yours.
Oh, I remember you telling me about this on your side
It's
part.
like,
Yeah, I remember. I know about your side.
It's like subservient. It's actually worse. I actually think direct hate is better because you can deal with it.
Yeah.
That kind of hate is like under the roots, kind of like sucking energy out of you. It's horrible.
Yeah, the only reason I asked that is because
don't-
I'm just curious in it. Like, obviously, you're saying you had a decent route in, so.
Yeah, I just don't pay any attention to it, to be honest. If someone wants to throw their energy at me, hating me, then I don't want to participate in that, because we know exactly if I put my energy into that, I'm just going to end up receiving way more of that. And I just rather focus on doing what I'm doing because I know the work that I'm doing is actually impactful. So I just don't pay attention to it. And even if I did get direct abuse, like, again, I probably wouldn't pay any attention to it.
And do you know what? I know this is related to some degree, but like I actually think that we talked a lot about like the law of attraction side of things, but actually training and releasing endorphins and getting fitter and looking better, you can actually become more confident and you can become more shielded against that stuff. I think a lot of entrepreneurs that are building businesses, they've got teams, they start to feel insecure and they're wondering, why do I feel so much self-doubt and so much like imposter syndrome around what I'm doing? And they're not training, they're not looking after themselves. And as soon as they start and they're feeling more confident within themselves, suddenly it's like, actually, I can do this. Like, because fitness is so important.
Oh, 100%.
Obviously. Like, we talk about the mind leads the body, obviously. But without the body, without the vehicle, what can we do? So I know, Laura, obviously, we've been talking a lot about the law of attraction, like being a female boss, obviously. But the fitness side of things is so important. Now, what are you training for at the moment?
Oh, I'm in a little bit of like this limbo at the moment because I've just been really ill with sinusitis the last month. And then now I'm getting ready for this new course that I'm launching in September. So I feel like I've just been ticking the boxes with my training at the moment, but I'm definitely trying to like improve my cardiovascular fitness way more, because I used to really struggle to run 5K, which as a fitness coach is just not acceptable. I'm not happy with that for myself. So I'm definitely trying to improve my cardiovascular fitness. And then once I've got a little bit of time brought back, I want to go into like more functional style of training. But on that note, again, I think it's even like important to highlight, like as a business owner, an entrepreneur, or a leader, like there's going to be different seasons in your life where you're going to know when this season for me isn't for me to really push my fitness to the extreme, because it would take my energy away from me. I'd be fatigued, I'd be tired, where I actually really need to focus my energy on the business, my client delivery. But then there'll be a season where I can actually push my training even further, because my business won't require as much energy as it does from me right now. And I think that's a really important skill to learn, and again comes from like the awareness and understanding like what your goals are in your personal life, your business, and your physical health as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
I love that. No, honestly, you know what? That really resonated with me there, because I'm in a similar position to you, because I'm trying to figure out now. I mean, we've spoken about these big events that you're obviously planning on doing a triple Ironman, and I'm sitting here being like, I'm just getting into swimming like a length without getting out of breath. So like, different levels in what you're doing for training. And I love your kind of reference to seasoning, because I've never thought of it in that way. I've never thought we actually have training seasons ourselves. Well, obviously we phase training, we do training for our clients in a way, but actually looking at it more from a perspective that sometimes we need to drop energy off. And I think sometimes us as kind of fitness professionals in some senses as well, there's almost a pressure there that we have to be on top of our training 24/7. There has to be some target, some goal, but actually it's all right to back off. And I've said this to you on numerous pods. I'm recovering from an injury at the minute with a herniated disc, and I can't do much, if I'm totally honest. Like, I can do a minimal amount of exercise that I've assessed to do. So it's nice to actually hear and resonate with someone who's in a similar position, because I find it quite difficult and quite pressuring, especially when you're going through social media and you're seeing people, for example, Sam Sulek, he's a guy who's blown up on TikTok and everything right now, big, jacked up 21-year-old. Yeah. And you see that and you're like, I'm 24, I've been training much longer than this guy. Why am I not as big as him? Why can I not train as hard as this guy? What's going on? And you really panic in your head about these things. And I think it's nice having that resonation between other people that actually it's okay to take some time and, focus on other areas of our life.
It is easy to think, just because other fit pros that the ones that are doing really well online, they're obviously in amazing shape, but to get into that shape requires a commitment that most people watching them won't make. Like, obviously for fit pros, like, we in theory should have more time and availability to do these kind of these crazy training like regimes, etc. But at the same end of the day, we're still human. We still, we're largely natural. I say I'm natural. I was 6 years ago, but those natural of us also, now, obviously, we're not going to be able to recover as quick as some of these guys online. So,
yeah, and I also think it comes down to, for me, I train because it energizes me, because it helps me with my concentration, my productivity. So, what's your reason behind wanting to train as well? Particularly as a business owner, and we've all touched on this already today, you need to look after your physical health. And there's so much research that shows that actually supports your cognitive function as well. So right now, it's all about supporting my cognitive function so that I can perform well at work. And that doesn't mean I'm not training with good intent. I'm still training really hard. I'm still doing a minimum of 4 sessions a week, but it's just not my primary focus right now, the aesthetic side of it. It's how can I perform well in my business?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You know what I had, and this is actually going on to we spoke about this kind of being like therapy, and this is a side that I'm going to open up myself. So for God knows how long, I think it stems back to the first part and kind of circles back to the kind of bullying side of it. I was bullied for my physique. I've got a really odd structure as a man, that I have a rather large bum in comparison to the rest of my body. And you know what, when it's cracking now, don't get me wrong, it's nice to get compliments from oh, hello, darling. Of course we're nice. I'm it's nice now to get those compliments. But when I was younger, there was a lot of impotence on my physique and how I was looking. I was very skinny, but I had these kind of bigger built glutes, which didn't look in proportion. It looked like kind of Daffy Duck almost in some kind of shaping. But that impacts me when I'm training nowadays, because I still, to this day, I say I'm 75% of the way there. This 25% keeps cropping up. And even to this day, when I go train at David Lloyd, that I'm still training in there thinking is anyone looking at me? Do I look good? How good do I look to other people? And I'm thinking, why the hell am I doing this to myself? What? And I notice myself doing it. I'm looking around for the biggest guy in the gym. Is he noticing me and my vet? Why do I do this to myself? Yeah. And it's because I'm still very young into business. And I'm still trying to work on myself to develop that side. And I think it's something that a lot of people it sticks in your brain, and eventually it will leave. You'll realize you're doing everything for yourself, and this is the only important thing. Have you ever personally got that where you're kind of in your head, you've kind of thought, actually, sometimes I end up training for other people and not training for myself?
Oh my God, yeah. Like back when I first got into the gym, like the first 4 to 5 years, like I was well into like the bodybuilding community. All of my boyfriends back then were like bodybuilders on steroids. So like I was obsessed with how I looked. I would like go on Instagram, compare myself to bikini competitors, like go to the gym and stare and pick myself apart in a mirror about how one delt wasn't the same as the other and one glute was slightly bigger. And yeah, it wasn't a fun place to be in though. Like I didn't realize how fucked up that space was for me to be in mentally. But yeah, I've definitely been there myself in the past.
For me, the worst one is like bench, squat, and deadlift. Because when you work in a gym environment, you're expected to have a big bench, big squat, big deadlift. Obviously, this is from a male point of view. I don't know what it's like with females. Maybe it's the hip for us has to be like over 200 kilos or something. But yeah, so I've actually recently got away from squatting with a barbell now. Because I was like, why do I need to have, and your legs are looking fine, so you're doing well. So, and obviously your legs too, and you haven't squatted. So why would we need to squat? So I've come away from it. I'm not squatting heavy anymore. Honestly, I feel so much better. Like I don't get any knee pain. I can walk around with like legs that are a bit skinnier than usual, but who cares? Who are you doing it for at the end of the day? You're doing it for yourself. Like I don't care about being called flamingo legs or chicken legs. Like, I'm good.
You did bring up a very interesting point there, and I know it was a squat, bench, and deadlift, and I think I'm closer to this kind of niching because it was an area that actually when I first started at Pure Gym as a, self-employed before we started working together, that I was like, oh, I'm going to get everyone into strength and conditioning training. Oh, I'm going to do powerlifting with everyone. Oh, I'm going to get really good at this. And I was watching loads of different powerlifting competitions. Now, obviously, I speak from an injury point of view that I've herniated a disc, and it has caused me major discomfort for nearly 6 months now. So in that perspective that squat, bench, deadlift has to be big, I tell you what, I've got a great bench, I've got a great squat, I've got a great deadlift. Like, I know I've got good numbers. And if anyone came up to me and asked numbers, how many people have actually come up to me and asked my numbers in the last 2 years? Go on, Nick, take a guess.
What, since you've actually outlifted them?
Yes.
0.
Yeah. So who am I doing it for? Myself at the end of the day. And that was the story from the beginning.
If you do less than them, they'll ask you.
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
What's your bench? 100. Oh, I did 110.
Yeah, mate. 100%. But I don't know. Again, the numbers game is always something people chase. And it's something that I think, again, I spoke about this in previous pods. Numbers is not the most important thing. For example, scale weight is not important. No. How you look, how you feel, fantastic. When you're going in a gym, when you're training, it's good to track numbers as data, data.
It does come back down to trauma because, like, for example, when I wanted to come away from barbell squatting, in my head I was like, my legs are going to be skinny and I'm going to be a skinny kid again and I'm going to get bullied by everyone like I did when I was a kid. That's not how it works necessarily. Like, I feel like, generally the pattern is you get older, most people get older, you tend to have less direct bullying, I would say. Kids are savage. Kids are savage. So
kids are
nothing,
savage.
They say anything. They're like little rats, mate. They will say anything to like, but actually no, I'd say chimps. They're like chimps. They've actually you can actually do things, they're annoying little buggers.
As you can tell, Nick has currently not got any children that he knows of.
Even when I have children, I'll be calling them, they'll be annoying.
I'll be walking around to Nick's house and be like, fucking chimps. What you doing? I'll be like, oh, hi Nick, how you doing?
Yeah, but it's like when you realise that trauma doesn't matter anymore, like once you overcome it, and I overcame it through therapy. So I had a therapist guide me through it, told me basically the foundation was like you're almost your parents, your inner child. And if you're like comforting your own inner child in a way, that can actually allow you to dissociate from the thoughts of that inner child. So you're now the parent, right? When you get to that kind of place where you can actually feel that, it's honestly so relieving. You don't have to like train for anyone else other than how you feel. It's like the best place to be. It is hard to like get to that place, and I feel like it can take years for some people. But yeah, no, squats suck.
Squats suck.
I'll take Bulgarian split squats. I'll take Bulgarian split squats every day over barbell squats.
Same. I actually love split squats.
They're amazing.
You two are mad. You two are mad. What is wrong with you people? No chance am I taking Bulgarians.
Give me 50 kilo each hand. I'll do 100 kilo Bulgarian. Just give me that. I don't care. I would rather do that than barbell squats, man.
I feel like I'm in my own boat. This is weird. I've never felt so in my own boat for an exercise. So we normally do some really quick fire questions towards the back end of a podcast now, Laura. So we're going to give you 30 seconds to answer these questions, okay? And I've got a nice little array to go through. They're all very kind of, as I say, 30-second, quite niche questions. A lot of them are kind of would you rathers, so you're going to have to bear with me. Now, as long as this doesn't cut out halfway through, we're all good. Basically, are you prepared? I'm not going to time you 30 seconds, but, you know, I'll work it out in my head. We've all done a 30-second plank before, so I think I can just count like that. Okay, so are you prepared, Laura?
No, but we're going to go for it.
That's a great answer. Good start. So, would you prefer to train to be aesthetic or train to be athletic?
Oh, aesthetic.
Aesthetic, why?
Because I like how I look.
Damn.
Cool. I like that.
Honestly.
So,
Sorry, pretty basic answer.
I like this is what we need. So, what's more important, being book smart or having good social skills?
Having good social skills.
Why? You know this is going to be a why after every question.
Yeah. And you can just navigate any situation. Like, you don't need to be book smart in life. As long as you know how to communicate with people and relate to people, I think you can get by. Absolutely.
Here's an interesting one for you. So, if you were to improve on one area in your life right now, what would it be and how would you do it?
Oh, good question. It would be, oh my God, why can't I answer this? It would be, I feel like you're going to do a countdown timer on me in a second.
No, this is a question. I'm interested in this one.
Dun, 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 dun.
What area would I think it would definitely probably be my self-belief in myself, actually.
Okay. I like that, actually. I like that. So, again, I think it's an area we can all improve on as well.
And how?
And yeah, how would you do it?
Well, I think I'm actually actively doing it with the help of like my therapist, with my own mentors, going to meditation groups. So I'm doing it, but I guess it's a never-ending journey with no end destination.
Oh, 100%. Now, are you a traveller yourself, out of curiosity? You've obviously travelled for work, but have you travelled around the world at all?
I've gone on holidays. I've not travelled, but it's on my bucket list.
So, here's a question for you. Would you prefer to be a solo traveller or a group traveller?
Oh, solo.
Yeah? Going solo?
Yeah.
Why would you want to prefer to be a solo traveller rather than group?
I don't like being in groups of people, to be honest, and I don't like having to please loads of people either.
That's a
I
very
just
good
want to
answer.
do what I want to do.
But didn't you do a boot camp?
Pardon?
Didn't you love the boot camp?
Oh, I did love the boot camp
Interesting,
back in the day.
So I think it depends on situation.
You can do it for an hour, but when it's more than an hour,
Yeah.
nah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, then I'm out.
Yeah.
So here's also a question for you. So this is actually just a general question, okay? So there was a survey done by NatWest in 2022, and it surveyed the amount of founders of businesses in that year, with women between the age of 16 to 25 years old. Now I'm going to give you two numbers, and I want you to tell me which number is the correct number here. So the question is, how many women between the ages of 16 to 25-year-old founded businesses in 2022? Was it 10,000 or was it 17,500?
17,500?
You're spot on. You're spot on. 17,500 women between the ages of 16 to 25-year-old in 2022 founded their own businesses,
That's
which
awesome.
I think
Is
is
that a lot?
That is a hell of a lot.
Statistic for
So,
men?
Yeah.
so for men, it was 22,500. So it's higher for men still, but in when you think of the grand scheme of things, if you would have said 20 years ago, "Are you founded your own business to a woman?"
To be honest with you, I would have given a different number than 10,000 though, because that was so obviously not the answer. You should have 10,063.
I should have done that really accurate number.
Do you know what I mean?
But to be honest,
I was like, yeah, 17.
that is everything from our podcast today. I've really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Oh, I've loved it.
Laura, how'd you find it?
Yeah, I really loved it.
Yeah.
It's good. I just
So,
wish I was
the
in
one
the
take
studio
home-
with
we'll-
you guys.
Oh, honestly, we wish you were here. We're going to have to do one. We'll try and organise one in the not so distant
Yeah.
future for you to come in, and obviously we'll try and organise a chat between all of us. Obviously, we could get Robin here, do four-way
do a
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I don't know if there's enough mic, but we can try and do that.
We can do 4.
We can do 4. So you're going to have to bear with me here, Laura, because I'm going to round off the podcast, as I say, like a proper radio presenter. So just to enjoy, sit back and thoroughly enjoy. So thank you, everyone, for watching the podcast. We thoroughly enjoyed our podcast with Laura today, and I can't wait to get her on again. Obviously, we've just spoken about her jumping on again. Make sure to follow Laura on all social media platforms. What social media platforms have you got, by the way, Laura, just so our listeners know?
I use Instagram, so Laura Hayter 3, LinkedIn as well. I'm on Facebook, but Instagram tends to be the one that you want to be on.
Cool, perfect. So we're going to put all those in the description. You'll see these in the shorts as well. Laura's going to be tagged across all the platforms that we're on. Obviously, make sure you go follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the minute. There's going to be many more shorts coming out for you guys. We've got many more guests on the show. Is there anything else you want to add in there, Nick?
No, that is it, guys. Thanks very much for listening. And thanks very much, Laura, for coming online. And we'll do that in person one soon.
We'll do an in-person one soon. Thank you very much, guys. I'll catch you later.